expect to catch for this game.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're dead even.
I was like, what? What is that sound? And then suddenly we hear Prolly in there.
My word.
I will admit, that was a bit of a dream of mine.
G2 just bounced back and destroyed Splyce in game 2.
Did.
Splyce, they were flying high, they were ecstatic after game 1, and they just came crashing down.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did, Trevor. That was a rough game for Splyce.
It was.
It was.
What did they do to bounce back? Okay, G2 have side selection. They picked blue side. It's a trend we're seeing yesterday. And I feel like a lot of places I'm seeing, you know, red side showing up. But this series is blue, blue, blue.
Yeah, I do want to see Splyce have at least like a backup plan if the first few ganks do not succeed. Obviously, they got punished hard by Perkz LeBlanc with the teleports, both mid and top lane. And then because of the full AD comp, there was no way out. It was done already. Jogap would never die.
Yep.
That is not exactly what you're looking for. Let's see this pick and man face, Trevor. It is just like game 1 with the Rakan being removed first by G2, but they do take away the Galio now instead of the Gragas.
Okay.
Like we saw in game 1. And this Galio was super good, of course, for Splyce in the first game.
Yeah, Senkux had such a good performance jumping in with Trashy's Jarvan. Once again, Tristana finds herself on the ban list along with Kalista. So Elise is still up. Xayah is still up.
Yeah, the Xayah, because Rakan gets banned, is of lower value, but it's still a fine pick if there's no other AD carries left that can actually escape something like a Jarvan engage. So G2 Esports actually removed the Caitlyn in this game, just like they did in game 1. And we have the same situation where a lot of these mobile AD carries are gone.
Fisher, I'm seeing a lot of hate for AD carries this series.
Really, yeah.
Both of these teams showing very high priority in removing them from the pool, and G2 first pick.
Yeah, so Jarvan first pick when you ban all these AD carries is super good, again, because he's so strong at engaging onto them. But Xayah is still left open if you want to play her to stay alive. Yes, it's not with Rakan, so it's not as great, but it is an option for Splyce. Also looking at their first rotation, like, Jarvan has been taken in first rotation all games so far.
Yep.
Gragas is still available for them to play, which was a good pick for Trashy. I think the Xayah is smart just due to Jarvan.
All right, so Xayah, this is the 6th time that Kobbe has played the champion all split. In the 5 previous games, he went 3 wins and 2 losses. What else does Splyce do in this phase?
So now that you know the enemy AD carry will not have easy escapes, you could try and draft a comp that can actually dive the back line a lot. It seems like they're not going for that route. They're actually going for super strong early game with the Elise, who of course will not add a lot of value in late game fights. The Cassiopeia is a lot safer now than game 1 because they have Jarvan on their side. Right. If Perkz wants to play that again, here we see Sven have to opt in for a different AD carry.
And it's the same story for the Ashe if they lock in. Earlier this series, to Fisher, you were talking about how you don't want to play Ashe if Jarvan is available or on the enemy team.
You have him yourself, so you can.
Exactly. They lock in the Cassio instead. I want people to watch how well or not well Trashy plays Elise, because he's played it twice this split, and it didn't go very well. But this is a different Trashy, this is a different Splyce.
Yeah, I like the Ashe here more than the hovers. I think getting a stronger early game is necessary, because you already see Elise on the side of Splyce. So Splyce already signaling, we are not going for a super scaling comp that will dive the enemy backline and kill whatever AD carry is standing there with no mobility. Because then they would have gone like Gragas over it, because they could put up like Gragas with Orianna. Would have been a great combo to get to the backline. Now it seems to be just Senkux who is the threat for now.
Okay.
The rest is based on early game. Trashy most likely looks to gank for Wonder again. Get Wonder head on a counter pick on red side. You can go with the last pick in this phase, or in this draft here. And then just have a safe bot lane that can handle themselves.
So what do you ban then, if they want to go for that option and allow Wonder the freedom to play one of his preferred carry matchups?
Well, you would remove, if there's any top lane pick they feel like they can't counter pick, they would remove that specifically. Now, most top laners do have counter picks. I would actually say almost every top laner in some form. So Splyce on the first ban don't have to remove it, and I like that because they wait and see what G2 ban. If G2 ban the cannon again, G2 might signal they want to play the Gnar.
Right.
And let's say that G2 also then banned the Camille with their last ban, well then it's pretty obvious, and then Splyce can actually just take the Gnar on their side. So some of the different mind games for different top lane picks. it is supports being targeted right now.
So what do you think is going to happen? You've explained some of the options and where the teams could prioritize it, but with the bottom lanes being hit so heavily, does that change your thought pattern at all?
Not necessarily for Wonder's counter pick.
Okay.
Up in the top lane. Wow. Brand support being removed against Mithy.
I'm seeing gigantic smiles on the sides.
So Splyce saw the Thresh ban and said, that's a champion who could try and shut down a brand. Is Mithy fishing for a unique support pick? And they played safe. The Gnar gets banned by G2. That's, as we talked about here, a potential early pick for a Wonder, but it is now gone.
That means the Gnar off the pool. Means Wonder won't take that. Of course, the Cannon's still up. Something has been banned a few times.
Yeah, that's also why they ban it, because they don't actually want to pick Gnar on their side either. Because they're like, if we pick Gnar, you're going to counterpick us with Cannon or Camille. We don't want that. And we don't want the Gnar to be the last pick for Wonder either. So just remove it instead to make sure there is no shenanigans happening in the top lane. Cho'Gath is still available in the top lane for Expect if he wants to play that again.
Let's find out if they do. Is it instantaneous Tom Kench? Lock in for Splyce. So there's some access to the back line, to the Ashe or Cassio, if Splyce can find it. And it is a Trundle lock in for G2.
Okay, so take Trundle's support for Mithy down the bottom lane against the Tom Kench lane. Not really going to be under a lot of threat. And also Trundle is one of their picks against Cho'Gath. They do take away, but Kled is still available for Wonder. He can still go for it. I think in the early game, it was successful enough. Despite the ganks backfiring, the actual 1v1 in the early game was fine for Wonder, and now he has an Elise to back him up to execute the early gank. So I would not be against a Kled pick here. Renekton is another choice when you have Elise, but Renekton against Cho'Gath in the late game kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting what we get for last pick.
Yeah, very interesting indeed.
We have to wait.
Find out what is happening there. Just to give you a quick update, there is a problem with the monitor on Mickey's side. As our QA guys are busy looking into that, let you know, maybe that's the brand. I don't know. We'll find out whether or not that impacts anything. I didn't actually see if he got to pick anything. No, we have dropped out of picks out of bans. Picks and bans. We'll find out what happens there.
The game?
No. Dropped out, so we'll have to reload up. But what do you think of the team composition that has been put together by G2 Esports? Jarvan, Cassio, Ashe, Trundle, as well as that Cho'Gath.
All around very solid comp with what I like to call like the double front line in Cho'Gath and Jarvan.
Right.
And then have two strong damage dealers just behind in Cassiopeia and Ashe. Like it's very much just a pure teamfight comp. You're not really looking to split push with a Cassiopeia too much. This is heavily like just a 5-on-5 team fight from G2 Esports. And funny enough, when we had the 1-3-1s against each other last time, on the side of Splyce, we also have very much just a team fight comp at the moment with the Orianna. So this might be more of a group up around the mid lane and actually engage on each other compared to this little split push game we saw.
Are you saying we might see the ARAM style game?
We might see the ARAM style.
That just has some crazy team fights.
Yes.
I'll ask you to explain that in game. As you can see, our technicians on stage. I have got an update from League officials that we will get back into picks and bans once the problem is resolved, and it will run all the way through to last pick. So all picks and bans will remain unchanged. That includes the brand support ban. And that means we're looking for a counter pick for Wonder. Now, Deficio, you had alluded to a few. You'd said you wouldn't have minded the Kled. You got a little more time to think about some of the champions, think about some of the options. We're not a fan of the Renekton because of the scaling. Kled is a possibility. What else could happen?
For top lane, I mean, he could try and play the Jace with play the Ruined King Rush and really something, but that is super risky. I think Kled is the safest and best choice, unless there's something completely new prepared up on top, because Trundle was taken away by Mithy and Gnar was banned away by G2. Those are the two of the traditional picks.
What if we get surprised and Wonder plays a tank in the top lane?
He won't.
Okay.
Surely.
I mean, I'm just asking the question, right? The expectation is, as a player, he's not a tank player. We touched on this a few games ago.
Maokai is open.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Maokai's been open in all the games, and none of the teams have put any value on it because both top laners want to play stuff that feels really strong in laning phase, and Maokai is not that strong in the laning phase.
Nope.
So It would surprise me a lot if they did. Technically, it actually fits into the comp really well with the Orianna, and you are going for 5-on-5 team fighting. But I think with the Elise pick, they're saying, you know what, we need to snowball the top lane. It's against a Cho'Gath who's easy to gank. That's again where the Kled, for me, comes in and adds a lot of value with, of course, his own little engage in the 1v1s. It is predictable in a sense if it is just camp top lane with Elise. Yeah. But I think it's still something they definitely should look to do.
Okay, so the expectation is there. We've explained the reasoning. Obviously, you can see the players on your screen still waiting for the go-ahead. We will jump into this in a moment or two. And there's a lot on the line here. The series is tied up at 1-1. As we've mentioned, Splyce have never beaten G2 in a best-of series. It has not happened in their history. Currently, 13 wins for G2 to 4 for Splyce. And that sound effect means that we will be running through this picks and bans, hopefully at an accelerated pace.
I'm going to predict that G2 will first pick Jarvan here, and then I think they want to play Cassiopeia as well, and most likely Ashe.
Okay, let's see how accurate you are.
Let's see if it happens. I think on Splyce's side, ooh, it's a tricky one.
I mean, difficult. What would you go with? Because you see these 80 carry bands, you know, what's the options here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to go Xayah. Okay. Definitely. And I think after last game where the early ganks backfired, maybe get a better early ganker. Okay. So I think Elise could actually be useful there.
You know, it sounds feasible to me. And let's see, first pick. What will it be? Whoa. Ding! Got that one right.
That was one already.
Okay, let's see some of the other ones here. Oh, Xayah, ding! And the early game jungler, come on.
You're going to have to do a lot of dinging here.
Yeah, no, I'm going to stop it. That joke died really early on. But again, just to go back to it, Splyce have never beat G2 in a series. And I asked a question at the previous Twitter vote of, is G2's era of dominance over? Now, they answered that question with a resounding no.
And you asked it too early, Trevor.
Maybe I did. But now I'm going to ask another question. How good are Splyce, right? They had a great early game in game number 1. They had great team fights, and they showed that unique comp and how well they could play it in game 1, sorry. And unfortunately, their plan in game 2 failed. But now, after 3 games in a row, you can decide and see what level they're showing up with. Because week 9 and week 10, we're kind of scratching from their records.
And they have a bit more AP damage this time around compared to last game. We're still waiting for that last pick from
can you predict this one?
Oh, hey!
One of the 3 that we threw out.
We did mention him. I thought this was actually the riskiest. How do you say that?
So close. Riskiest.
Risky. Whatever.
Yeah.
Kled could have been a little bit safer, but it's fine. Play the Rune King rush on Jace can be really good against some of these tanks. Sometimes English is really hard when you have a potato in your mouth.
I mean, to be fair, you are speaking it as a second language. I barely speak it as a first, so kudos to you, Deficio. As the risky pick in the top lane, Elise has to gank there. Get Wonder ahead and see if they can play the side lane.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of paint the target towards the top lane when you pick Jace, and you have Elise already saying, we will go here, and we will try and get this guy really far ahead in this game, because mid lane, there's most likely cleanse from Cassiopeia to try and make sure that it won't be Perks getting jumped on instantly.
Right.
Coming into the bottom lane as well, you have a Tahm Kench, so it's not the greatest gank setup ever. I guess Perks technically could just run different summon spells if he feels the confident he can dodge the cocoon. Let's see what he picks in game. Okay, we'll find out. This is the first time that we've seen Wonder running Jace in the top lane. And this team comp that I'm seeing from Splyce feels a little bit like what G2 tried to do in the last week of the regular season, where Expect was on the Jace. That's true. And Expect demonstrated an inability to use that Jace on the sidelines despite having a lead and being ahead. Exactly, and Wonder, funny enough, has actually shown some of the same issues where while you can get an advantage, the decision-making between sticking to the side lane and split pushing and when to join your team, when to back away, it is very difficult at the pro level. And it's actually something he's also struggled with a bit. So we need to see if he can execute this Jace, because Jace is much weaker in team fights compared to something like the Kled as one of the options we did bring out. Perks is, in fact, not running Cleanse this game. So Trashy could look early game towards the mid lane. And see if he can force a summoner from Perks. As he has done a few times. No defensive fan, no defensive start. Mickey's trying to make his way out. Pillar of Ice comes down, and that's an early flash. So Sven and Miffy can have the summoner spell advantage to start out the game. We also have to remember that Trick is on Jarvan on his side, so it's not exactly a jungler who can't join in on the early gank shenanigans. And if he's able to actually find Elise on the first gank, and prevent her from getting a kill, then you do slow down Elise quite a lot. And Jarvan really outscales the Elise on the side of Splyce. So all the focus will be around finding Elise, make sure she doesn't get a few successful ganks early, and then let Jarvan just take over the late game.
Syncux takes quite a chunk of damage from Perks.
Fun fact, on this patch, Perks will have one less Twin Fang.
Oh, why is that?
Because he lost some base mana.
Why did Perks get nerfed? That's not very
That's true,
fair.
that's fair. Cassiopeia got nerfed. We didn't have to nerf Perks just yet.
I'm being a little pedantic, of course. Perks, his lane kingdom. Let's see what he can do with it this game. Gonna have some more tools during the opening levels at least.
He actually wrote to me before the games and said, if I play Cassiopeia, you have to say I'm killing snakes with snakes.
Okay, and you said it. So
I now said it for him, but I felt like it was so lame. I didn't want to really. I didn't want to steal it as my point.
I need to check with league officials whether that counts as collusion.
I don't know, man. Killing snakes with snakes.
It is pretty lame. It actually sounds like a quick shot line.
Well, maybe we should give it to you then.
I might throw it out there a little later. Perks playing very, very far forward in the lane, in front of his own minion wave. Mickey and Mithy, they're going to be trading. Very different flavor of 2v2 from what we've seen in the two previous games, the Thresh into Morgana and vice versa. What do you make of this 2v2 lane?
I mean, it's kind of the same as last time, where action-wise, we're not expecting massive 2v2 fights happening for both of them. Like, Trundle very much wants to scale, and so does Tahm Kench.
Right.
None of them are like rushing Ardent Sensor for level 6 action power spikes. It is possible, though, to set up ganks with the Trundle against something like Tahm Kench, but it's a difficult lane to get a big advantage in right now.
Mickey seems to have a taste for Sven. He's landed, I think, 3 of those tongue lashes in a row.
Sven is a great-looking guy, you know?
And I want to mention that throughout the course of the split, Cobby and Mickey have actually had a very high amount of damage per minute. Not going to be able to expand on that at the moment. But yeah, if you take a look at the damage per minute difference here, between 3 and 15 minutes, Mickey plus 80, Cobby plus 60. They trade, and they want to get in your face a lot.
They're always playing super aggressive. Now, the junglers are the ones who need to play aggressive in this game here, especially Trashy. On the Elise, he's already sitting topside, trying to make sure that Jace does not get ganked. He finds Trick as well to prevent any sort of ganks happening. Mickey's actually mid lane right now.
Well, the snakes are trying to kill a snake. Devour comes out. Mickey's going to spit him back out. That's the flash already used. Heal as well. Mickey's running away. Clockwork wind up. Secures first blood.
Adding to Mickey's damage per minute in the early game, he walks to the mid lane and executes a nice gank against Perks right here. There's no way for him to actually get away once he got eaten here by this Tahm Kench.
Yeah, swallowed alive and spat out dead. Is basically what happened. Perks' lane kingdom is under threat, much like G2's European kingdom. In the quarterfinals, if they go down, it'll be the first time. And here's a replay of that play.
And you know Perks is super tilted after this. Like, the support level 2 walks from his bot lane all the way mid. Perks could have flashed very early on here, saved it though, and then ends up having to use it after Mickey already used Devour, and then you've already taken too much damage.
It just looked so clean. It did cost Cobby some CS. He's down 9 as the wave is being pushed into him. Cobby and Mickey don't really want to fight here. There's a lot of minions now targeting Mickey. Blade Caller comes backwards. Grey health not yet popped. Does now.
But it's so fantastic for Splyce that without Trashy, they get first blood. And they get both summoners from Cassiopeia, because that means you can now return to mid lane as an Elise really easily. Once Orianna hits level 6, that's an ulti right in the face of Perks he can't really get out of because he has no flash. And this suddenly means that Splyce can actually play super aggressive around mid lane as well, while still keeping check on the top lane, because they want to make sure the Wonder can play as if there's no jungler in the game and just go aggressive.
Well, you said that, keeping check on the top lane. That's where Trashy is right now. Roamed up into the river. I don't know if Expect is aware he's there.
No, he's aware. He's playing against an Elise Jace combo.
Well, still got caught by the cocoon. Flash has already been used. Trashy and Wonder hold on to theirs.
Trust me, Expect thinks that Elise is there all the time.
Okay.
That Trashy do not need any farm or anything, that he will always be top lane. Because that's what happens when you play top lane against a combo like this. You know you're getting ganked. You know your jungler is not going to help you a whole lot. And you just have to survive. That's a flash gone. Top lane now. Trashy. This is the Elise dream. Mid lane, no flash. Top lane, no flash. Both champions, no dashes. It should be fairly easy ganks to execute for Trashy.
Okay, trivial is maybe a good word for that one. If and when the opportunity presents itself. Wonders are up 12 CS in that top lane. Cobby's down 7 in the bottom lane, and Trashy is spotted out by this ward. So that complicates the ability to make plays when you can see Trick is sitting in that top lane.
Level 6 now for Orianna in the mid lane. Still no flash for Perks. Half the cooldown gone. And he's forced to play very defensive for the next few minutes. The ward there was very good. They know, okay, Trash is taking his bot side jungle, so he will be top side, because there's nothing else for him to do on the map. So he will be top towards the top lane or mid lane on the north side. So Perks can actually get a defensive ward on the bottom side and just hover towards the bottom side of his lane.
You can see the stats that just popped out on your screen there for Trashy's Elise. 2 games played. His KDA, 3-10-13.
That's a sloppy
in the
gank.
past.
Come on, man. That was too sloppy. They literally just need to have the Orianna ball in range for Senkuk's to ulti, and then with flash on Trashy as well, they should be able to force Perks either back to base with no HP left or just straight up kill him. But Perks has stayed to the bottom side and saw both of them walk straight into the lane.
And that means Perks stays alive. Trashy spotted out once again by a G2 ward. I'm looking for the pings. Good vision toggle from the observers to highlight as Trashy's now backing away. Okay, Splyce have got 1,000 gold lead. Mid lane, Senkux is pulling ahead thanks to this pressure from Trashy. Wonder maintains strong advantage.
Yeah, but Perks right now is getting the farm he needs.
Yeah.
His flash is soon ready, and he's gonna stay alive. So this could have been a much bigger advantage for Splyce's mid laner than it is now. Perks finally tried to get his recall off, or at least been looking for it a few times, but he gets his blue buff instead, so can actually remain in lane for quite a while. Does sit on 1,000 gold at this point, but while he's been delayed a few times, getting a blue buff and just keeping up in farm is all he's looking for. No tier yet, though, for him.
Interesting in terms of itemization.
One thing you can do on Cassiopeia against like double AP is go Abyssal Mass, which already does provide you some defensive stats and some mana. Now he will push up. So Senkux is hiding on the control ward. There's still no flash from Perks, but Trashy's not here yet. He's on his way. He's running there. They're calling. We have a few seconds left on the flash. It needs to be now.
Well, there's the flash. The shockwave actually sends Perks to safety.
Jesus Christ.
And now all of a sudden, Senkux is flashless.
Oh, God.
Do you want to expand on that?
No,
fault?
I do not want to say anything.
Fair enough. It did not work.
I like the ulti from Perks.
Okay.
Good defensive ulti from him. He didn't have to use anything other than his heal, and then he was fine, because his flash wasn't even ready.
I always feel bad whenever Deficio's disappointed. Like, it kills my soul. There's just so much sadness in his eyes and in his voice.
The thing is, I love all these players so much, and I just want to see them succeed. So when I see Trashy and Senkux team up and try and make something happen, I'm like, hey, execute this gank. Kill Perks. Shut him down.
When you are a father one day, Deficio, and you put your hand on your son's shoulder and say, you let me down, boy. It's going to break them. It's going to break them. And that's what you're going to have to do to Senkux after this game. Mickey's already exhausted Mithy. Didn't really do a whole lot. And it's bought enough time for Trashy and Cobby to make their way into the jungle. What is Splyce trying to do now? They need to salvage some of this laning phase.
I mean, they're still ahead in the laning phase, and it's still looking okay for them. Because they didn't really lose that much. They just didn't gain a big advantage. Obviously, the flash from Senkux was used, but if he's just staying safe, which is actually very difficult against a Java, he might get ganked by Trick and end up losing more than. But until that happens, Splyce is still 1,000 gold ahead.
Yeah. They're
still in a situation where the Jace will get towards his play the Ruined King. He will win the side lane against the Cho'Gath.
Right.
And they have this Orianna who will, later on in the game, be able to actually keep Sven and Perks busy in teamfights with a good shockwave and good ball position.
Just me fear-mongering. I've been watching a little bit too much Fox News lately and jumping to conclusions. 10 minutes into the game, Splyce have got opportunity and time.
Tricky, political stuff.
A little bit. Got themselves some time. I mean, that CS advantage is still very large. Wonder is now dealing with that Bramble Vest of Expect. 2 Dark Seals on the side of G2. We'll see how well those stack up, if at all. And for Splyce, where do they go from here now? So we know the scaling, we know there's some time on the side of G2. They're happy to play this one slow. Trashy, at what point do we start getting worried you know, that the Elise is 0-0-0.
We're a little bit worried already,
Okay.
just a little bit. It's not done by any means. I think getting the top lane tower for Wonder should be one of the big objectives for Splyce. So he actually gets a much longer lane. He can push all the way down to tier 2 tower, and he can start leaving the lane and go like mid lane or recall and go bot lane and actually kind of use his advantage to get the rest of the team ahead, but they need to get the tower down. So Trashy, he agrees with the call. He goes top lane, says we need this top lane tower real badly. And he's also here to protect Wonder in case Trick shows up. But Trick knows that his job is to farm and only look for the safest ganks ever. And that's a no flash Orianna.
All right, flash into Cataclysm. Shockwave is available, manages to catch 2. Command Protect buys time.
All right, no team is allowed to gank mid anymore.
Okay.
Now we just go top lane instead. Look at Trashy, he's top.
Now you're going to have a word with Trick and Perks as well. All right, so tower was the objective. Expect pays the respect to Trashy and Wonder's engaged potential. The tower's getting dropped. I don't know if they've got enough damage to kill on this wave.
But they can get it next time. The key thing is that getting the tower down early on in the game. This enables Wonder, as we just said before, to actually use his advantage and spread it to the rest of the team. So Trashy, while not getting early kills, applying pressure top lane, making sure Wonder gets further ahead in his lane, 122 CS. Bottom lane,
Carby's got access to that Featherstorm, may need to use it.
he's saving it for the arrow here. If Sven doesn't use arrow, he's not going to use his ulti. On his eye, Trick's trying to defend top lane, but he's just delaying the tower from dying.
Oh man, you can feel the tension building in this game. It's the 3rd of the series. And 2 more Nexus need to fall for either team to advance the semi-finals. It's Splyce with a marginal lead, somewhat to be expected with their team composition. They need to push this even further, and this tower with Trick nowhere nearby will fall. Couple of autos from Jace, there we go. And Splyce take tower first blood. They've already got first blood.
Yep.
Dragon is available, and it is a juicy target to swap her and play for.
And right now, this game is all about Wonder. On this Jace here, we know his impact in teamfights will be a bit limited. Very hard to execute Jace in that stage of the game. But here in the early to mid game, powerful laning phase, great split pushing, so much damage when he gets ahead. And we're looking at him now to snowball his advantage. Bot lane are fighting.
A lot of damage. Featherstorm's already been used, but the Enchanted Crystal Arrow has not. Devour available, and that's going to gobble up Mithy. He spat out the stun and flash defensively. Mithy and Sven lose all 4 sums.
Trick is on his way.
What can Trick do? Low mana for Carby. Flash is available. Decides to get another auto out. Mickey, the guy's already taken down. I think the minions killed him, if I see that correctly. And that just kind of, well, that just went weird.
Well, G2 got a kill bot lane. Very important for them now that are
What was the
losing
last
top lane.
thing that killed Mickey?
I don't know if it was a volley or just Sven who actually turned around and just shot him once in the face. Because Mickey had lost all his gray health. So he was just sitting at like 1 hit from dying. Copy flashed away because I think he thought Trick would be able to get in range and actually ult him, which probably was the case, so it was a fine flash. But let's see the trade. Again, normally we don't see a lot of trades in lanes like these, but it's actually Sven who takes a lot of damage first, so it's a good start from Splyce. And then they realize, okay, CC on Mithy, they can devour him as well, maybe they can kill him in time. But Mickey's just tanking all the Ashe damage, and because now you see all the damage here with the Grey health, he pops it, it's gonna run out. And I think he turns around and ends up getting that one last hit. Yeah, he actually turns around and then
One last
Sven just
shot.
kind of shoots it.
And my eyes on Trick. I was waiting to see if that Cataclysm was going to come down. It did not. So G2 get their first kill. It lands in Sven's pocket. And while they are still behind in gold, it's 15 minutes up, and Wonder's got his Blade of the Rune King.
Yes, back to Wonder with their anti-tank first item. Push out your top lane. And then, if you don't feel like you can actually hit the tier 2 tower, which is very difficult this early in the game, you need to leave the lane. Go out of vision. That means Perks has to respect it. He needs to play defensive in mid because Wonder could show up behind him and he will just destroy him. So he suddenly needs to give the lane over to Senkooks. And then, there's a lot of pressure on the entire top side just based on Wonder pushing his lane. They seem to say, you know what? With Trashy here, we are the strongest 2v2 possible. We can actually go for this, trade here against Expect. We can maybe even get a bit of damage on the tower. But Wonder is the man we are looking at. Mid lane, Perk's gonna run away from that one.
Abyssal Voyage comes out. Petrifying Gaze was early.
I think he was lacking a little bit.
A touch of lag on land, of course. Didn't manage to connect to the target. Splyce extending that lead. Rift Herald will help a lot in unlocking one of those lanes. And of course, Trashy's gone for the Runic Echoes on the Elise, so he's got a good amount of burst to start the game.
One of the situations where new Rift Herald is, of course, nice, but you do kind of miss the old Rift Herald a little bit as a split pusher like Wonder here. You would have loved to get it in a situation like this, but getting this objective here, or this Rift Herald to take down the mid lane tower, makes the game really difficult for Perkz to play. Because if he's pushed back to his tier 2 tower, he's not going to move anywhere. He's a Cassiopeia. It takes forever. He's slow. He can't face check anything. So the objective for Splyce now should really be use this Rift Herald to get preferably the mid lane tower.
Well, this will be the first Rift Herald of the series that'll be able to be channeled. Game 1 was denied because the ensuing team fight from Splyce prevented G2 picking it up. Game 2, it just fizzled. Nobody had a chance to get to it. And I want to see how well Splyce can use this tower sieging menace.
Because one thing they can do is when Wonder pushes his top lane, he goes to mid, so does Trashy, you put down the Rift Herald, and Perkz should not be able to defend properly. As long as the 2v2 lanes are even, and Mithy and Sven can't just move, well then Splyce should be able to do it. And that should secure them at least a lot of damage on the mid lane tower, and that is the objective, shut down Perkz further. It all depends though on where Trashy gets a kill. If he gets a kill bot lane, you might just see him go and put it there.
Talking about some of the itemization, you highlighted the tank killer, Blade of the Rune King for Wonder. The Abyssal Mask has been completed for Perkz. He's got the Tier now and Fiendish Codex. Morellonomicon on the other side as well, and dual Essence Reavers for the bottom lanes.
And there's also a lot of people kind of question the Abyssal Mask build on Cassiopeia, being like, why would you do that? There's no AP on it. Like, it just sets you behind a lot. But the reason it's good is when you're playing as multiple AP champions, the defensive stats are, of course, awesome for you. It also gives you cooldown reduction, and the aura around it that increases your magic damage by 10% is the same range as your Twin Fangs. So whenever you're hitting people with that, you actually get the 10% increase, and your AP ratios on Cassiopeia are fairly low already, so it's not the end of the world, not just stacking a ton of AP quickly in the game, because most of them is like 0.2 to 0.4 ratios. Not exactly the greatest in the world.
No, small numbers, and while you were talking about the itemization,
yeah, you were busy doing something.
Number was picked up by G2 Esports. They've got themselves that Mountain Drake.
Look at this now. Wonder coming in after pushing the lane here. Trashy wants to get down the Rift Herald to secure this tower. Trick knows, that's why he's in here to defend. This is the play we mentioned just before. G2 reacting well. Jungler is already there. Expect, doesn't push his lane further. He goes mid. Realizes, okay, hey, they might actually place the Rift Herald. We gotta defend. And now he goes back to his lane, and he realizes he's under more pressure, but he's saving the tower for now.
All right, there was an attempt on Mickey's life. Enchanted Crystal Arrow fired by Sven, going through the river. If you look at the river in the bottom of the screen, a lot of vision on the side of G2 Esports. The observers are flying over, control wards are plenty. That's what allowed them to take that Mountain Dragon so safely. And while we jump to mid, Trash has used his flash. It got the flash and heal out of Perkz. Shockwave was used as well. Maybe the setup for the tower, but there's not a lot of support yet officially.
No, but they do have Wonder coming in now, so if they can at least get a decent charge from the Rift Herald, it's a lot of damage on it. It is still on almost full HP, so this is good.
That's the tower.
And this is the move again. Wonder goes in, joins the 3-man group, and they don't care about bot lane vision. They only care about mid tower.
All right, Featherstorm's available for Cobby. Crystal Arrow is not. Mithy forced to use that Subjugate to get out safely. Look at the rest of Splyce. There's a party in the bottom lane, and all of Splyce are invited. Trashy, however, did not get the invite. A great Pillar of Ice will prevent Splyce jumping onto Sven, but the tower's the targets.
They get the objective again, bot lane tower. There's 3 turrets gone now. While it's not ganks that are getting Splyce ahead, it is pushing the turrets. It's all around Wonder. Top lane first, into Rift Herald, into mid lane, roam bot lane, and you secure it. And that's how you can use your advantage as a top lane split pusher without killing people. Solo queue people, you don't have to just stay in your top lane for 30 minutes. You can actually use your advantage to snowball all the lanes.
Yeah. Great advice to Fisher.
Oh, they won't listen. They're busy in the side lane. They're already trying to kill the inhib turret.
That's what they're trying to do, pushing those second towers. At 20 minutes, Wonder, however, is not. And he's allowed, unlocked a 3,000 gold lead for Splyce. 3 towers to 0. The only risk, of course, that Mountain Drake to G2, the next one's Mountain as well, so you really don't want to give double over, especially with Cassio and Ashe.
Yeah.
And even Jarvan, like that's objective killing instantaneously.
And we have to remember, while the Jace is doing well now, the Cho'Gath in the late game is the big monster. That is the guy you are afraid of. So Splyce needed to get this early advantage. They needed to get Wonder ahead in his lane. Preferably for them, they would have a few kills now to get even further ahead, but they have to settle for the turrets. And that is enough to get full control around the river, as we saw in Game 1, where they failed to execute after they managed to succeed the first 20 minutes.
Splyce have got in their hands a lot of damage as well. Jace, Elise, Orianna, Xayah. Do you think they start playing around Baron? Is it too early to start thinking about that? They've got outer turrets, yes, but now they need to push that vision forward. And
it's hard when you don't have a tank. No one can safely stand in front of Baron without taking a ton of damage. And you don't exactly have a comp that destroys Baron either. So it will be a bit tricky for Splyce to rush it down this early in the game, which does buy some time for G2 Esports.
G2 Esports, with some of the time they've been allowed, have grouped up middle. All 5 members, by the way, but they don't actually walk up to the turret, respecting the potential shockwave. Wonder was pushing bottom.
Yeah, they know that they're just scaling. Like, all they want to do is push mid so that Splyce can run into Baron and get full vision. If you look at the carries right now, like, I know it's like 2 to 3k goal lead for Splyce, but Sven and Copy have the exact same gold right now. And Cassiopeia is 600 gold behind Orianna. So the carries on G2 Esports are not really that far behind.
Yeah.
Meaning that if they just get to 2 fully completed items, they feel confident enough they can just start winning team fights.
Well, G2's definitely going to be looking for some of those team fights. Trick and the rest of G2 clearing out the scuttle grab, putting some of that defensive vision down. And at the beginning of the game, I asked a question of like, how good are Splyce, right? Because G2 bounced back after a crazy, crazy game 1. G2 smashed game 2. Now we've got a fairly even game, and while Splyce have an element of an advantage, it doesn't feel to be enough. So these next 5 to 10 minutes could determine the result of the game. If by 30-32, G2 are still fairly even, that's when you start going, well, now they've got the tools. Yep. They've got the comp that can take over.
Compare Cho'Gath Jarvan in late game teamfights to Elise Jace. Like, that's heavily in G2's favor, with a massive frontline that can actually also threaten the enemy backline properly and stay alive and when these fights start. And then, of course, the backline, it is Senkuk's Orianna against an Ashe. Can't escape the shockwave without flash. Cassiopeia, same deal. But that's all on the Orianna then.
Yeah.
Like, all of it is then on Senkuk's to land the big magical shockwave and for G2 to not have summoner spells.
On the bright side, Senkuk's Orianna is pretty decent. 3 games played. Across those 3 games, he's gone 14, 2, and 19. So he's got the ability. He's got himself a Leandries, Morello.
This is actually a lot like the games I expected to see more of. Like, the really slow grinds against each other. Yeah, where none of the teams are like playing over-aggressive, like we've seen in some of the other games. And then one team is just kind of waiting for a mistake on opening.
Well, Nikki decided not to flash the arrow. Command Protect lands, and Cobby's going to be the target of a Cataclysm. Featherstorm is still available to him. Oh, Ice comes out, expect. Flashes and gets the feast. That's for the kill. Featherstorm as well as Bladecaller buys some time. But Cobby gets chomped and killed down. Cocoon comes out and Splyce. They were caught napping.
So Wonder is trying to push down the bottom lane. He wants to get at least 1 tower. TP is ready. Baron might be started by G2, but they are somewhat low. If you look at mid, the Ant perks down to 50%. Splyce, no shockwave ready, but they do have TP and Wonder to join. Trick is solo. They should actually fight this.
Okay, teleport coming in just north of Baron. Mithy's moving away. The Miasma's buying some time. Trashy caught out by the flag and drag. Repel goes up. On the back end, Wonder gets his first kill of the game. Takes down. Where's the accelerated shock blast? Not going to find the shot just yet. Baron was stopped, and Splyce get a kill. At the end of the day, it's net advantage to G2.
Make it one more.
Oh!
That was a good one from Wonder right there. TP's in, get 2 kills after getting bot lane tower as well. Trashy's back in base though, so Splyce can't exactly just start the Baron instantly and try and return the favor here, but we're slowly setting up for the same kind of back and forth we got in the last one. They're actually going for it now. Because now they had Mickey's ulti.
Oh my word. Asher is available to Sven. He's going to spot all of Splyce. Look at the damage from 4 DPS champions. Splyce will secure the Baron uncontested.
Nice setup with Mickey's ulti there. They couldn't rush it down at first because Trashy was in base. But when you have a Tom Kens to deliver you can get in there pretty quickly, and Trick was still dead. So Splyce. Oh, wait, the hiding. Hiding. Oh, he placed the ward.
So scary. Asher is still available. Shock Blast comes out. Where is Sven? Gonna fire that ECA. Silence onto Wonder, and Perks also got Petrifying Gaze. G2 buying time for Trick to arrive.
And this game is still so much about wonder on this Jace. He got the early advantages together with Trashy. Then he TPs in, gets 2 kills, snipes the enemy jungler.
Yes.
So they can rush down Baron after Trashy returned.
So Fisio, at the beginning of the day, I was mentioning some stats that I find interesting. All year long, G2 have taken 5 Barons to the 1 of Splyce. Splyce just secured their 2nd Baron this series. That's more than they've taken against G2 all year. They've got a 5,000 gold lead, and now Splyce are setting up for the siege. The comp that needed to get an early advantage has it.
See if they can get down the tower. Expect is coming from the side, engage.
All right, so Cataclysm comes down. Petrifying Gaze buys some time. Cobby's been able to escape
for the
now. Mickey's going to be the target. Grey Health is used. Cobby's Featherstorm needs to buy some time. Shockwave doesn't do a lot. Wonder's now the next target. He goes in on Hammer Form. G2 are destroying Splyce. Yes, Senkax gets 1. The Shockwave there fired onto Expect. Wasn't used earlier.
That was such a late one. I felt like he had the ball in a good position earlier, at least against Perks without the flash, but he didn't pull the trigger. Saved it, and 2 for 1, and we get some of these fights here where, remember, the Jarvan and Cho'Gath front line of G2 is stronger than what Splyce can offer on their side, but trying to look at Senkax on the ball. He places 1 here near the tanks, so that's fine. He then places 1 at Perks and Trick, but does not use the Shockwave. Saved it. Ends up having to use it later. Would probably not have done a big difference in the fight, but maybe he could have gotten at least 1 more kill for his team.
In the end, what was it? A 2 for 1 in favor of G2. It's more importantly, it stops the Baron siege to Fisio. Ash Arrow onto Mickey. Once again, he elects not to flash it. Rightly so, apparently, as G2 could not chase any further. And Splyce, they maintain a lead. They're down in kills. They're up 4,000 gold, and they're starting off the next dragon. I talked about their Baron stats. They got 1 all year. They've got 2 this series. That is the 3rd dragon that Splyce have secured this series, adding on to the 2 that they got all year long.
All right, so we again setting up for back and forth team fighting. Can Splyce deal with the front line of G2? Can Senkax land the 1 Shockwave that kills either Perks or Sven and takes down one of the G2 carries? A lot of things to look at, and also, we talk about how hard it is to play Jace in late game fights.
Yes.
If you are an absolute monster and you find a great flank and actually get to the back line, you can, of course, kill these squishes very fast, but it's difficult and not something I'm expecting to happen.
3 items on Wonder. He's got that Lord Dominic's regards to complement the Black Cleaver and Blade of the Rune King. Ardent Sensor was picked up by Miffy. Tanky items being picked up by Expect. He's almost got himself that Thorn Mail. And 3 items for both mid laners. So, you know, that itemization, the power is continuing to scale and grow. And Splyce, they maintain a small lead. As, by the way, we get another Mountain Drake. So these Barons are going to be under so much threat once this is picked up by whoever secures the next one.
And whichever team wins a team fight can just start running down the enemy base even quicker than before with the different Drakes they're getting now. But Expect has gotten his Stone Blade completed. The 1-shot potential is soon there. Cobby, though, in his fight will try and stay away from the Cho'Gath every time it's possible. But again, it's tricky when you have the engage coming from Trick, then you have the Righteous Glory being popped, then you have a Trundle Pillar in your face. Like, there are so many ways for G2 to reach the backline of Splyce.
And what I love is just how close some of these fights have been. Splyce really showing they can go toe-to-toe. And they can, you know, when fights are set up by them, they actually do exceptionally well.
It's true. And when it's an engage from Sven, Mickey's there to devour someone, but I almost feel bad for Mickey because when they're gonna get engaged on, there are 4 squishy players on Splyce. They will all cry for the devour. They can't all get it, and if he picks one, he might see the next guy just dive right next to him, and that's a tricky one for Mickey because the cooldown in fights, while it is short and shorter in the late game, it's not something you can just spam. Like, you gotta really pick the correct target as a Tahm Kench.
And it's so game-changing. If Senkax hasn't fired his Shockwave yet, do you devour him? If Cobby has or hasn't used Featherstorm, the complications around making those decisions just escalate.
So the mechanics are easy, but the decision-making can be tricky as a Tahm Kench.
That's where it gets rewarding, from the good to the great TK players. Splyce again, they're still ahead. Pillar of Ice comes down onto Trashy. Ash Arrow obviously not going to get fired because he can repel away from it. And instead, Splyce is able to just walk away. Looking at the minimap, keep throwing your eyes to the minimap because you'll see Wonder trying to push down lanes, but there's no tower here. He needs to push into this inhibitor turret, and with no real vision in the bottom quadrant, it's a little bit risky.
They did ping that Ash had gone missing, and therefore Wonder steps away until he sees Sven on the map once again, and that's always the key as a split pusher. It's all about communication and information. If you know where the enemy is, and you know they're not bot side, you can actually push aggressively. If they're all missing, probably expect him to go bot lane and gank you, and then you have to back away. And Wonder right now is going all in.
Whoa, that is just one rotation with that Mercurial Hammer. And ranged form as well, managed to take him down. That actually was surprising to me, considering I thought
he got arrowed.
Long-range arrow. Abyssal Voyage comes down from Mickey. This is going to buy some time. Cataclysm lands it to Mickey. Wonder flashes into the pit, but luckily he's got the support of Senkax. They've taken down Trick. Look around the corner. Perks is waiting. Petrifying Gaze available to him. But that was a great kill for Splyce.
A very good ulti from Mickey. Joins the fight instantly to just buy time. Worst case, he just devours the Jace, and they wait for the rest of Splyce to show up. Baron is alive in 5 seconds, and Trick is dead for another 30. This is Splyce going for Baron again.
Oh, they're going to try rush this one. Okay, Ash Arrow not available. Subjugate not available. But Expector's got Feast.
And Shockwave is ready for Senkrux. If G2 walks into a narrow little corridor, they might just get completely destroyed by Orianna.
12 seconds left before Trick is able to respawn. Baron has been started by Splyce. Look at G2 looking to engage. Okay, Baron down to 6,000. Expectant Perks maybe going to go over the wall. The Storm is available. Mickey decides to turn his attention to Spin. That's a big chunk of damage. And nom onto Trashy. Ash Arrow catches out Senkax. All of a sudden, G2 are winning the fight. But Kobe and Wonder, they're in the midst of it all. Not gonna be enough. It's a double kill for Expect. And G2 win the fight, a man down.
Oh, Jogath, can you be more annoying in the late game? Walks in, eats Trashy. Splyce did not want to finish the Baron, because they were respecting that Expect to maybe Flash and Feast. But there was no jungler on the side of G2. I think you have to take the gamble right there and just finish the Baron, smite it, and then see if you can look for a fight. We have to see the replay here. Splyce made a call to disengage from the Baron and jump onto Sven. They see Sven down here at the bottom of your screen. Expect is on the other side to flash over and feast the Baron. They jump onto Sven, but Trashy is sitting there with about 50% HP, gone real quick, and then it was a great setup from the rest of G2.
Petrifying Gaze locks down 3, not enough damage from Splyce.
That is where you just say outplayed. G2 with 4v5 outplays Splyce in the fight.
When you see moments like that, you see glimmers of G2, glimmers of the 3-time champions coming through. They were down in gold, they were down in pressure on the map. And G2, they get the Baron. They're going to get themselves their second Mountain Drake of the game. And just a great demonstration of how G2 can play and punishing Splyce's decision-making.
It's been a close game, though.
Yes.
Where once again Splyce won the early game and then failed to take that lead and close out the game. They make it difficult. They give G2 Esports ways back into the game. And despite the great performance from Wonder on this Jace, Splyce are now seeing another tower fall and they're 3k gold down. Deficio,
in game number 1, when this scenario started to play out, you mentioned the Sivir 6 items farming super minions. Is there a way for that to happen again? Is there
always
an alternative in this game?
There's always a way when you have things like Orianna in the late game as well, but it is much harder because you have to sit with a constant Sivir wave clear. You don't have that in this game.
Right.
And in the last game, in the first game again, the Morgana Camille combination was so good at getting onto the backline of G2. They don't have the same luxury here because when you don't have a front line yourself, you typically don't have anyone who can really reach the enemy carries. You often need the tanks to go in, or you need like insane flankers like a Talon. But he's like so hard to execute anyway, and most of the time you will get spotted out. So you often need someone to go in first, and then the squishy damage dealers can follow. They don't have anyone who can go in first.
Let's see if the 3K Elo shockwave can happen. Expect is running all the way forward with that stone plate on. Baron, 1 minute left as the inhibitor will survive this siege. Splyce on the defensive. They're down 4,000 gold. They're down half the kills of their opponents. And they're trying to deal with Baron empowered minions. The miasma is going to block any form of mobility as the inhibitor falls at 35. And G2 just swing around the corner. And now they set up a play in the mid lane.
Oh, shockwave was used right there, but didn't do a whole lot.
No.
G2 is still going for the tower.
All right, Cocoon will catch out Expect. Not going to do a whole lot more. Cataclysm comes down. Ash Arrow onto Mickey. Good Featherstorm and Root Caller. That's at least a kill back. 2 of them, in fact. Good rupture from Expect. Abyssal Voyage delivers Senkax to the backline. Expect is the target. What can Splyce do with this? They've got themselves a 3rd kill as Mithy and Sven run for their lives. But the supers are in the bottom lane.
Keeps happening though, Trevor. Whenever we feel like
They got him! Mithy, what was that?
Dramatic.
One guy in the audience, that was not cool. I do not appreciate that joke. For the microphone that may not have picked it up, one random, not so funny fellow yelled remake the moment that dropped silent. And you see Perks' face? That's at you, whoever said that. Anyways, I have no update on what is happening just yet. I will find out shortly. Just to confirm, after losing the team fight, pause was made by G2 because Trick is just not feeling well. So he will be excused. Get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, and whoo, now we need to reset.
You have to do the woo.
Oh, I did indeed. Splyce just won a team fight.
It happens again. Like, I feel like whenever it truly feels like, okay, G2 now just gonna walk it straight in and actually win the game, like it,
yes.
They're now getting so far ahead, then there's that one fight in the base of Splyce where they end up getting a little bit greedy, and then they get caught out, and then they lose the fight to Splyce. A Trick right here found the first engage on the Jace, and then swapped over his ult and died instantly. So that was the first frontliner dead.
Yes.
And then Splyce just went straight for Perks.
Deficio, before we get to replay, I have a question for you. How many games in EU LCS has a team won while in a gold deficit? I'll tell you. 10. That's it. All year long. Now, let's see whether or not Splyce can do it again. The reason that's number relevant, they did it in game 1 of this series. And if you pull the replay up onto your screen, it was because of great team fighting in game number 1. And do you know what replay I have for you, Deficio, that you have to explain without any prep or knowledge this is coming? It's the team fight.
All right, let's see it. So, obviously, G2 end up tanking the shockwave first. Perks takes some damage from him, but then one is hitting with Flash still. And after they kill the tower, they take a lot of trades, a lot of damage in their face, and actually, basically just Splyce gets so much damage on the front line of G2 before the fight even starts that it was really easy to kill the first guy who jumped in and expect didn't have the HP to actually go further in. So this was basically just G2 going all in for a tower, and then they should have backed away and not taken the fight because they've already taken so much damage in the front. But they made the call to go in, and as you can see, 3 players have rage quit, only 2 remain.
That wasn't quite the way I was expecting that one to go. Oh, we'll wait to hear exactly what's happening as the players come back on stage. You can see Trick. Also, I do have an apology to make. It is actually not all year. 10 games out of 158 this split. A team has won with a goal deficit.
Oh, but that's not impressive at all then.
I know. 10 out of 158.
You lied to everyone to make it sound great.
The odds are not in Splyce's favor. However, they were not in game number 1. Follow-up question, right?
But the last one was technically not a question because you answered it yourself.
Well, that's fine. I'm going to then...
Just make a statement.
Make a statement. I'm going to give you a question,
okay.
Deficio. Splyce just got themselves 3 kills. They've got their entire team alive.
I think 4 kills.
They did indeed. Mithy right at the end. What did they do next?
In this game, let's see, there's no Baron, there's no Dragon. They have super minions coming in the bottom lane. They will probably just try and get this mid lane tower right in front of them, but they don't even have a minion wave just yet. Let's see, we got 40 seconds actually on Expect and Perks, so there is quite some death timers on G2. They might be able to get at least mid inhib. Let's see if they can actually get more. There's a wave coming that I just noticed that is roughly around where Splyce is normal tier 1 mid tower is.
Right.
So they have to wait a little bit for that to arrive,
okay.
but they should have enough time to get at least a few towers down.
Well, we'll find out what Splyce decide to do. Obviously, as you can see, officials are on stage chatting to Senkux and the rest of Splyce right now. While I can see off to the side, several members of G2 starting to make their way back. Mithy and Perks have just rejoined. Claps here from the studio in Berlin.
You did it. You returned to the stage.
Yes, well done. You walked. You have the ability to be a human being.
I still want to see, though, in this game, because, I don't know, the death times are so long on 3 guys. Expect, Perks, and Mithy. There are 5 members alive and a Jace on the side of Splyce. I actually wonder how far they can push down. It's tough to make a call.
If you were to guess, and I won't judge you on it, how far will they push down? Keeping in mind, Splyce are just past the river in the mid lane. Because you can't see the screen, we can. So I need to just try and help this one along. Deficio, the answer, please.
I want to say they're going to try and rush down, all the way down. But
all the way, what, game or just mid-inhib?
No, they're definitely going to get mid-inhib, that's for sure.
They're definitely getting it. That's a confident one. And you think maybe Nexus?
They got the wave coming now. Let's see how much they can actually do. They have so much damage with the J specifically on these turrets here. But right now we're 30 seconds on Perks, so they will not be able to... Oh, well, they're coming, they're coming.
Deficio, as we jump back into game. G2 were punished, lost 4 members on the siege. Definite was the call in the mid-inhib, and it is down. 25 for Expect, 15
they're going to take mid-inhib only.
23 for Mithy.
If Perks has been dead for like 10 seconds more, maybe they could have tried and go all the way, but they played safe. That's an arrow landing in the mid lane.
An instant devour onto Senkux.
That's an interesting one.
It was indeed. I don't quite know whether they were expecting a teleport or something. Either way.
They get the inhib, so technically the call was correct.
All right, so the minhib has fallen. Supers going down that way, and now Splyce have to deal with Supers in the bottom lane. To quickly reset. It's only a 1,000 gold game. Elder Dragon is spawning soon-ish, and Baron will be up in about 2 and a bit minutes. And Splyce, with a team comp that is now beginning to be outscaled, they found a team fight that made it work.
But the thing about, the whole outscaling thing, it's in terms of damage, Splyce will have so much damage. They will always have enough damage to win a fight. At any point in the game, they'll have enough damage to actually kill G2 Esports. The problem is, can they do it fast enough? Because there is 2 big frontline tanks who will take a lot of time to kill. And while you're busy trying to kill them, Perks and Sven are busy trying to kill you. And one of the tanks is also Cho'Gath, who can almost one-shot your carry. So while they will have the damage to do it, it is so difficult to play late game fights when you have no frontline yourself. They might be like, Mickey, get in the front. You're the tank right now. And that's not enough. That's not going to be enough.
It's not, especially when Expect is able to just one-shot people. Featherstorm comes down. Mickey flashes over the wall. That was an engage. The Cataclysm is out, but it gets 2 of the abilities. All right, Splyce now trying to back away. 1 minute 20 on Baron, 1 minute 10 on Elder. I love when both objectives are alive because it puts so much added pressure on these teams, on the vision, on the positioning.
And Febiven said before the game started, this will be close. Jesses and Caps on the analyst desk yesterday said this series will be close. We've seen now a game in favor of Splyce. We've seen a game heavily in favor of G2, the last one, and in this one, very close again. Back and forth, small gold advantage. But Splyce, with the squishy composition, needs to outplay G2 in late game fights to actually deal with these tanks.
All of the expectations around what level Splyce would come in at is now being answered. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning of this game. How good are Splyce? And apparently good enough to stay very close. Now, are they good enough to take the series lead 2-1 and challenge the era of G2? Look for the engage here. Ash Arrow is up. Featherstorm is not. Cobby's got a couple seconds before that becomes available.
Sven can look to arrow on Mickey right now. There is no flash for the time. Kenshi can't, of course, devour himself. That would look super weird. So if they want to just force a fight, no matter what, you can actually go for Mickey.
That would look weird. That's your professional opinion?
I just can't imagine how it would look if he ate himself.
I don't know either. Maybe somebody can animate it. We're 40 minutes in, and the ARAM mode has been engaged.
I think Sven is already on the Elder Drake, just taking that one down real quick. Rest of G2 are standing with the big wall in the front. All the squishes. See, no one wants to go in first. They're like, not me, you go first. Because you know, you're just gonna die.
Elder Dragon's picked up, by the way. It has died. Sven soloed that one out. And all of a sudden, G2 now once again in control. The super minions in the bottom lane, they're pushing onto the steps of Splyce's base. Is this Elder and Baron? The answer feels like yes.
You can't really contest the Baron against the Elder Drake. They have to surrender another objective over to G2. There is the same kind of setup as game 1, except Splyce do not have the better late game draft. So that is again why they need to outplay G2, which is difficult to do in these fights. Again, I guess they wish they had a better late game draft with how the game has gone, but then obviously they wouldn't have gotten the advantage in the early game.
Exactly, without that Jace, maybe what else would have happened in this game? If it were a tank, if Wonder wanted to play tanks, what coulda, shoulda, woulda? Questions we'll never know the answers to, because right now it's expect tanky Cho'Gath. 5, 1, and 3. He's just gonna destroy anybody. 5,700 hit points.
Without even clicking on his item.
Yes. And that feast, I mean, that will actually, he'll just swallow anybody at this stage. What damage is it at the moment?
Just around 950.
Well, true damage, that is a huge amount. Sven only has...
Copy's HP at this point is 1800, so when you pop, of course, the stone plate as well.
It goes up.
You get pretty close to actually killing him.
Well, let's see what happens here. Tower drops instantaneously. Elder Dragon is currently still buffing up G2, as is Baron. Right, inhibitors now going to start falling. Top is down, mid will be next. And G2,
it's all in their favor.
They shouldn't make the same mistakes they did previously.
It's all in G2's favor right now with this draft. Great team fighting comp, and the Jace was the only thing that kind of broke the pure ARAM that we were looking at before we saw the last pick for Wonder. Because obviously with that Jace, it actually became a split push situation for Splyce, but not for G2. It's been all about grouping as 5 and look for these fights. We'll get the last inhib down. Actually, never mind.
Second one
just respawned, so but they never got in the mid lane before. So
no, they have not.
Just the remaining one.
First time this game, Wonder's shooting out those shock blasts.
Oh, expect really afraid of that cocoon.
But it's like shooting a tank with a pellet gun. It's just not doing anything right now. Expect shrugs it off. And our stats team have informed me that apparently the Feast will do 1,150 damage to champions, to Fishio.
Oh, was my math
at
off?
this stage. I didn't want to say that, but politely, yes. So that's going to get almost guaranteed a kill on Cobby once the stone plate is used. All right, inhibitor in the bottom lane is now being sieged.
I'm pretty sure I'm actually correct.
Okay, well, start the fight with the stats team soon. Maybe we get some screenshots in there as well.
It's roughly 1,000 to champions.
We split the difference. We split the difference.
Because to, obviously, minions, it is 1,000 plus the 362. So that is to not champions.
All right.
It's about 1,000 to champions.
Cocoon connects onto Trick. There's no fight just yet to Fishio because Shock Blast from Wonder are at least tagging Trick down. Expector's trying to escape. Chunked down fairly low, but all 3 inhibitors are down. Mickey's going to be the target here, gets devoured, not going to be enough to kill him. Perks flashes forward with a petrifying gaze. Won't be able to help. Cataclysm's available for Trick, but look, ushering the supers in.
Yeah, now we wait for that shockwave from Senkooks against the no-flash Cassiopeia, but there's so many super minions buffed up as well. Oh, Sven flashed away from that one.
Not going to be enough to help Splyce out. Cobby's looking on the side lane, Featherstorm available to him. He's moved forward with the flash. Perks is not going to be able to get taken down. Senkooks is killed. Nexus turret number 1 is down. The second is the focus. Despite Cobby doing work, it's not enough to save the base. The Winions are enlisted for G2 Esports, and the Nexus falls. G2 won.
The late game draft meant that G2 Esports, once they got the advantage, did not let go. It was not game 1 all over again, despite some similarities in how they actually played out. It was Splyce's early game and then G2's mid game. Love the Jace from Wonder, I have to say that. I think in the early game they got quite an advantage through it, but not a big enough one. We didn't get to see the Elise really get lanes other than the Jace far ahead. There were opportunities early on around the mid lane, backfired, And then these late game fights, we kept saying it, like, there's no front line on the side of Splyce. There were just a bunch of squishies.
They were zoning ganks, presence ganks. You know, where you just walk into a lane and be like, hey, what's up, dude? I'm here. You don't want to mess with me.
You're so cool. I love that.
But
when you're trying to be young and cool, man, it's nice.
I know.
How old are you again? 30 now?
I turned 30 on Monday, so it's just like I'm trying to combat it. But I think I am still relatively impressed with Splyce in the big picture.
Sure.
Because, as we said, they've been crushed recently pretty heavily by some of the top-tier teams in EU.
Yep.
And we didn't know how they were going to show up against G2. And despite G2 struggling, they still have a lot of pedigree, a lot of history and experience that gives you faith in their performance.
Yeah, and they had another game here where after the early game, you feel like if you just paused the game and said, okay, can Splyce, actually finish this game? They should be able to, but it requires kind of almost the perfect execution. And that is very difficult to do.
It is indeed. G2 haven't had perfect execution, but they've been ahead of Splyce, and that, with the pressure, means they won game 3. Here's Shocks and the crew to tell you more.
Thank you very much, Trevor. I think it is fair to say that Splyce is definitely putting up a good fight against G2 so far, but it is G2 that gets their second win on the board. I do want to highlight some of the good moves that Splyce made. They had a solid early game again, and then they also, in the mid-game, are able to secure Baron. And at this point in time, I think we all thought that they had kind of tilted the match back in their favor, Verius.
So this is when we saw the power of the split push, where they actually kept Wonder down in the bottom lane, and they got a really good punish onto G2, who felt like that they could start up the Baron after getting a pick down onto Splyce's AD carry, but with 4 members joining and forcing G2 off the Baron, they actually look pretty confident because they were able to kill the jungler, the smite goes down, and now they have the numbers advantage to make this play happen.
Yeah, and in this scenario, that Jace looks fantastic, doesn't he, Probably? But what are kind of the pitfalls of playing with a Jace in that top lane as opposed to maybe some other tanks?
Yeah, the only issue with Jace is like he's not going to offer any CC or like any tank ability, and he's kind of like a second AD carry in a way, but like much shorter range, so you need to play it really split push heavy. And the reason why it has kind of low success rate is because if the enemy team pressures around Baron or something and you need to respond quickly, if he has to instantly join a fight, he's not going to do as much as others. And you even saw later on, Splyce decided to start the Baron, and again, they're playing a Baron comp with no tank. And so like Elise gets chunked, Jace gets chunked, just because they start Baron, and normally you can start it and not take much punishment, but without a tank top, you kind of get hurt bad.
I believe the next replay we have is actually an example of the fact when the Jace is already there and not able to really get in. And also, I do want to highlight also how G2 really plays this fight correctly. They have the right target selection and they're able to peel off Evan. Do you want to talk through this one? At this point, obviously, all they can think of is don't let that Cho'Gath feast. But what other things do we have to keep an eye on?
Well, here, yeah, obviously, Cho'Gath can easily steal the Baron, so you don't really want to go for a 50-50, I think, because I think Cho'Gath's ult does more damage than the smite right now. But then also it's really hard to turn when you have this composition because you don't really have any hard engage besides like Cocoon or like Flash Orianna ult, you know?
It.
And they have so much disengage, like Cho'Gath, Q, Cassio, W, Trundle Pillar, Ash Volley and everything. So I think right now they should just back off and be kind of happy, but on the other side, like Jarvan is respawning, so they can maybe rush the Nash. So I think they just really misplayed the fight and Elise got one shot. So.
Well, we'll roll the clip out and see what Splyce decides to do. And I also want to keep an eye, Vedi, on the way G2 plays this fight, because they do have their eye on the prize. Here they're going to arrow also Senkox, who's off to the side. The Cassio ult is good.
Yeah, exactly that. Those are all the great points that you made, Sharks. A lot of things came together for G2, and you see one of the things that they used to be praised for back in Spring Split, which was that this is a good team fighting team, right? Even though Unicorns were very hailed as the team fighters of Europe, G2 have always been a team that have great communication in the late game. They know exactly how they want to do it. They have strong individuals that mean that they pick out the right targets, and that was just a great culmination of all of that, along with the fact that it was difficult for Splyce to get the opportunity.
Yeah, we did always used to talk about G2 as the best team fighting team in Europe. Probably how far are they off from that, and who might be the best team fighting team in Europe?
I mean, I think they are definitely really good team fighters, and especially in that last like Baron attempt, when Expect moved behind the Baron to like threaten I can flash and eat the Baron, it really forced Splyce into a terrible team fight, because I know some people are watching it going like, why did Splyce like turn off a Baron there? Why didn't they just do this or something like that? Like basically Expect put them in a position where it's like they're about to burn Baron, but now they can't because of where Expect is. So now they have to turn, and like Febby says, they have no CC to turn. So you basically put them in the situation where it's like you're going to lose over here or lose over here. Which one do you want? And the kind of the only chance they had is CC Cho'Gath and burn Baron, because there's no way they can get out of that fight and like run into Cho'Gath, run into Cassiopeia and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do now want to take a step backwards and take a tally of all the games we've seen so far as a sample size. That's 3 games. It is match point for G2. And Splyce was only, even though the 2 games we've seen now, the last 2 games have been close, they only really were able to take a victory with that, what you call the gimmick, right? We had the Camille and the Morgana and the Sivir in the end. So what are we looking for here? Is it still something like that? Because when it comes down to it, seems like the even games with the team fights, it's not really working out for them.
To me, I just think that Splyce every single time have gone to late game, and their composition has made it very difficult for them to play well in the late game aside from game 1. And what I'd love to see from them is just draft a late game team fighting comp, right? Put Wunder on a tank, have your jungler provide CC, give Senkux and your AD carry DPS, and allow them to go off, because I think they can do it, but...
No, well, let me jump in there as we take a look at some stats for Expect versus Wunder, because Prolly and all of us have been talking about the fact that can Wunder do it? Because in the regular season so far, Wunder has only played Cho'Gath 3 games, and that are his only tank appearances up until now. He loves the likes of a Rumble, of a Kled, of a Gnar, of a Fiora, right? So, you know, maybe it isn't that easy of an adaptation to make for Splyce, Prolly.
Yeah, because it really has been their style that Wunder is playing this kind of like carry-focused top lane stuff. And if you look at the drafts for Splyce so far, they've all been really strong lanes, like winning lanes across the board. And this could be the reason why G2's been taking the game so slow, is because they're actually in losing lanes, so it takes them a long time to get their lead. And Splyce has never shown that they're like a really big snowball team. Like, they don't really play reckless early games that much. So G2 playing these games slow, I think, is really good for G2, but if Splyce decide to draft, like, late game team fights, is G2 actually going to play slow now? The reason I think they're playing slow is because they have all these losing lanes. It's not really their fault.
Well, if we look at their combined kills per minute, usually in the LCS, G2 is a pretty slow team. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to assume that they might not go ham in the early game if they have an even composition. But of course, we can't predict that, right? Febivin, another thing I want to bring up is we as a desk, and I think you specifically, we had something to say about Trick. He's not having the best split, but he has been having a good series. Do you think that's what's enabled G2 also to get their leads in their other lanes and keep control in these games?
Well, yeah, I think in the second game he played really well with Zac. Like was it the first game? No, the second game. Yeah, when he stole the Baron, I think it was a really big turning point. And also, like, I think, yeah, he's been playing really good this series already. So, yeah, I think he's gonna keep playing well.
Yeah, and if he's playing well, it seems like the wheels turn at a good pace for G2. That's
Things are looking good.
Yeah.
Overall, I think is the key to say, because individually they're all playing very well, and as we saw in game 1, arguably they could have and should have won that game based on the setup that they had. However, a good composition from Splyce and a good gimmick, as probably quite aptly used, allowed them to be able to take that win. For me, I'm just looking to see what else can Splyce do, because right now I feel like 3 times in a row it's been get an early snowball, and then in the mid game, close it out, and then they get these early leads, and then they never transition that into anything. So I just want to see a little bit more from Splyce.
Do you? Because you'd get your prediction if it's a 3-1.
I mean, that's true, but I'd rather have good League of Legends than be right.
Okay. Oh, that is wonderful. I think that is something to frame from an analyst. I'd rather have good League of Legends than be right. Well, the series is on the line for Splyce when they step back on stage for Game 4. Meet us back here for that after the break.
Guys, are you ready for game number 3?
No.
Shoes off?
Yeah.
Shoes off.
Oh, now we are. Now we are.
Snakes are trying to kill us, Snake. Devour comes out. Mickey's going to spit him back out. That's the flash already used. Heal as well. Mickey's running away.
Nice. Good job. Good job.
Clockwork wind up. Secures first blood.
And I think he turns around and ends up getting that one last hit. Yeah, he turns around and then
One last shot.
kind of...
You guys have to make really.
What the fuck? I was trolling.
All of a sudden, G2 are winning the fight. But Copy and Wonder, they're in the midst of it all. Not going to be enough. It's a double kill for Expect.
Hard scary.
Nice!
Holy shit. What the fuck?
And G2 win the fight, a man down.
Oh, Cho'Gath, can you be more annoying in the late game?
Despite Cobby doing work, it's not enough to save the base. The Winions are enlisted for G2 Esports, and the Nexus falls. G2 won.